Time now to dig into some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representatives Andrew Stoddard and Corey Malloy. Gentlemen, great to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Let's get right into it. One of the big stories breaking through the week was the suspension of Banjo. This has been really a controversial topic for quite a while now, at least going back to the last year. So it was revealed that the owner, Damian Panton, had ties as a teenager with the KKK. But again, this is something that people were really looking into before that. So Representative Stoddard, let's start with you. Your thoughts on the latest developments?
Thanks. It's something that is long overdue, in my opinion. This is a company that's operated with zero transparency. We're not sure exactly all that it does, how it operates, what purpose it serves. And there's a lot of taxpayer money on every level that has gone into this. So I think it's the right call based on the owner's past, but I think it's something that should have been done a long time ago.
Representative Malloy, some of your colleagues on the Republican side were looking at running new bills in the upcoming session to try to address this very issue. Your thoughts on Banjo?
Well, I think it's the right call to do for multiple reasons. I think, the data collection that goes on with this program that they're doing is a phenomenal amount of data from a lot of different sources. And my biggest concern would be how it relates to privacy and how the data will actually be used. I understand that the Attorney General's office wants to try and do what they can to speed up prosecutions when they're justified and stuff, but it's just so questionable how this data can be used. So my biggest concern would be privacy. Not having heard of this gentleman's background, that's also very concerning. So it's come out this week, and so it's definitely the right thing to do to discontinue using this service.
All right, a question I want both of you to weigh in on is there a place for artificial intelligence or this type of Banjo technology in law enforcement in the future? Representative Stoddard, let's go back to you. You work as a prosecutor with Murray City, so do you see any value in this type of technology when we're talking about law enforcement?
I don't think we're there quite yet. I think law enforcement and technology have a lot of benefits when they work together, but I think things are coming out at such a new rate that we're not sure how they interact with civil liberties. We're not sure if there are biases that are built into these AI algorithms. And so I think there may be a place for it, but there's a lot of work we have to do until we get to a point that we can successfully use it and defend using it.
Okay, Representative Malloy, do you see any future for this type of technology in law enforcement?
Well, I would have to agree with my colleague that there's probably a place for it, but I'm not an expert on AI by any means. But what I do understand about it is it could do a lot of good things, but I think we have to proceed very, very carefully, especially as it relates to protecting the privacy and the rights of our people here in the state of Utah.
All right, let's move on to the virtual state conventions. We had those, and both parties, the chairs of both parties, were really excited about the success of that and the participation. You guys are both state delegates. Give us your rundown of how you thought the process went. Representative Malloy, let's start with you on this one.
I thought it was phenomenal. When we first heard that we were going to cancel the caucus meetings and then the convention, it was just, how are we going to do this? We just cannot let our election process stop. And I think the chairman, Derek Brown, for the Republican Party did a great job, he and his team, putting together a phenomenal convention that was done all online. And I have to say the same about my county convention down in Utah County. Same thing. It was just so quick, so smooth. It worked for everybody. The percentages of participants who voted in the conventions was, I think, if I recall correctly, it beat the records from when we had it before. I will say that it's difficult not to get out there and be able to meet with the candidates and rub shoulders with all of our friends and neighbors who go to the convention. That's probably the hardest part. But
okay, yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit, because I want to bring Representative Stoddard up first, but then I want to get into, is this the way of the future? Representative Stoddard, though, before we get to that, your thoughts on how the virtual convention played out on the Democratic side?
I thought it went fantastically. Our county convention was done by phone, which I think was a lot of work for our county officials, but it went incredibly smoothly. And then our state convention was done by email, and both were incredibly efficient. It was nice to have the bulk of my Saturdays on those days because they were nice days to get out. But I did appreciate how quickly and smoothly the voting process was, and not having to wait for recounts and things like that.
I have to say, from a media perspective, it was nice to have the bulk of my Saturday as well, no doubt about that. Okay, the next question for both of you. Is this the way of the future? And if so, what accommodations or changes need to be made to make this a permanent thing in Utah politics? Representative Malloy.
Well, I think we learned a lot and did some things that we didn't know that could be done. And so I think a lot of these bits and pieces will move forward, and how they will be done, I'm not exactly sure. But I think, to me, it would be a hybrid or a mix of the traditional with the technology. That's what I would love to see, being able to get out and visit with the candidates. Like I said earlier, rubbing shoulders with my friends and neighbors, talking about the candidates, and then, perhaps getting online and doing the vote that way, or even doing it from home. But I'm not sure what that would look like, but I see us doing probably a combination, and it was a great learning experience.
Representative Stoddard, what is the wave of the future when it comes to virtual conventions?
Yeah, and I think Representative Malloy is exactly right. There are certain social aspects, as well as the ability to hear candidates speak against each other, so you can compare their ideas and their platforms in real time, that we need to figure out how to be able to integrate that into the virtual voting. But I absolutely hope that the electronic voting stays.
Okay, let's move into another big story of the week, and that is the shift to the stabilization stage when we're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, reopening businesses in a careful way. Representative Stoddard, we'll start with you on this one. Is now the time to begin doing that?
I'm a different kind of doctor. I'm a lawyer, and so I can't claim to fully comprehend the data, but in listening to the press conferences from people who are a lot smarter than me, specifically Dr. Dunn, it sounds like she's been very encouraged with the data and how we're doing in terms of flattening the curve, and I appreciate that. I've firsthand witnessed the economic damage that has been done as a result, but I think it was the right call to shut things down. I do think with some strict precautions that things can start to open up, but what I don't want to see is it get taken advantage of, and then we're right back where we started, where everything has to shut down again.
Okay, Representative Malloy, I want to hit on one specific thing Representative Stoddard said there, and he says it was the right decision to shut everything down. Do you believe that?
For me, it's hard to say. I think we definitely, as a society, had to address the pandemic and the virus. But to me, I think as we move into these different stages, I think it is the right time to move to the next stage. We have to get our economy moving again. We still have to be very conscientious about our health as a society, and protecting ourselves as well as protecting others. But I think there's a combination of common sense that as a society, as people living in this society, that we all naturally take the right precautions and start getting our government a little bit more out of it, without doing anything that would certainly spike and increase the return of the virus.
We have 1 minute left. I want to get both of your thoughts on this, what we saw play out, the dynamic between local leaders and state leaders. We saw mayors Jenny Wilson and Aaron Mendenhall disagree with the governor and kind of go in their different ways, but they did so still working together. Your thoughts on how that all came together? Representative Stoddard.
I think the way that our state and local leaders interacted was fantastic. I think the governor in his plan left open that different locales could address things differently for their needs. And I think that's what's going to play out now. Is you'll see Salt Lake County still have more strict standards than different parts of the state. And I think on the local level, they are more prepared to address that because they're right there. Okay,
Representative Malloy, you'll have the last 30 seconds. You live in a county that did not go to an order but kept it as a directive. Do you like how your local leaders handled it in your area?
I do. I think our county leaders and our mayors in the towns in Utah County did a phenomenal job without getting too strict. letting that common sense among our people kind of run the show. Most people were doing everything they were supposed to keep themselves and their families safe, while also being responsible not to do anything that would harm anybody else. And I think the data reflects that. And I kind of hesitate to make things too strict.
All right, we're going to have to end it on that note. Great conversation. Appreciate having both of you here. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.